So thank you all for joining the third European Universities of the Sea CU Blue Talk session and welcome. This event, just few housekeeping rules, and it's important to say that this event is organized as a webinar. It is different, a little bit different than a typical Zoom webinar, Zoom meeting, so you won't be able to interact with other participants, but only through chat and questions and answers. So please, if you have any questions, just type them. Sorry. Rookie mistake. I didn't mute my phone. Sorry. Now everything is muted. Sorry once again. So if you have any questions, please use questions and answers, and and you can use chat to say hi. It would be great just to type a few words about you and where are you coming from. So if some of you are interested in contributing as panelists or have elaborate questions that is hard to type, maybe you can just type that in chat and we will join you as a panelist. And a little bit about this initiative and today's event. We have started with this through CU Alliance, and CU Alliance in itself is connected through the joint medium of the sea. CU is basically CU is the glue that binds education, research, business, society, and environment in order to answer the future challenges of the seas. European University of the Sea is constituted of 6 universities, University Cadiz, in Cadiz, in Kiel, in Brest, in Split, in Gdansk, and Malta. And Blue Talks is a series of short expert talks targeted at a broader academic population and representatives of the industry. We are looking to entice interest in the blue economy and to help you all in understanding what the blue economy really is. We will use this Blue Talks platform to map the future potential of our regions and to explore new joint collaborations. This is our third event. We had great success with the first two. We had more than 170 registrations with attendance rate of 62%. A majority of you stayed for full 50 minutes of the event, and we had pretty good results. So today I have a great pleasure to welcome Anabela and Karel from Joint Research Center of European Commission on the topic of COVID and its impact on tourist behavior and policy options. Anabela Santos has a PhD in economics and management, and she's expert in policy evaluation, firm performance, and applied econometrics. Currently, she is an economic analyst at the Joint Research Center. Today with her, we have a colleague of hers, Karel Haegeman, and he has been working for the Joint Research Center of the European Commission for over the 10 years. And he is currently coordinating the Stairway to Excellence project and the thematic smart specialization platforms. Anabela and Karel, thank you and welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nicola. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the invitation. It's a great pleasure for us to be here with us. And so let's start with the presentation. Did you see correctly my screen?
Perfect.
Okay, so thank you. So our presentation focuses on showing how COVID-19 health crisis is affecting tourism behavior and preferences, both in short and then long term, and also to understand how we can react and to make regions more resilient. And so with my screen, moment. So the presentation is divided into sections. The first one is about to present the main results of our recent JRC Science Policy Report. in order to better understand the size of the tourism sector in EU, and also to understand how COVID-19 is affecting the tourist preferences and also consumer behavior. And the second part is about some reflections that we had internally, more related with recovery and some policy options in order to make regions more resilient. So let's first, when we start our study, the first main difficulty was for us was to understand what is the dimension of the tourism sector in EU, because the tourism ecosystem is very complex. It involves several economic activities, as we can see in this slide. So we have the producer, which includes transport, accommodation, attraction, conference and exhibitions activities. We have the distributors and facilitators. We have the supporter, and all these kind of activity are have horizontal and vertical integration. And outside this small ecosystem, so we have all the environmental framework, which is also included in the overall ecosystem, which include infrastructure, suppliers, labor market, regulatory framework, and financial market. And so, however, in our study, we estimated that the tourism contribution for employment in EU is about 90 million of jobs, and which represent about 10% of the total EU employment. However, the contribution of tourism sector for regional employment is strongly heterogeneous, as we can see in the figure, so in the left. So we see that some economies are depending more than others of tourism-related activity. And in the right, we have a figure which represents our index concerning the intensity of job at risk in tourism-related activity. So this index refers to the average national dimension, and it includes three main indicators which affect the intensity of job at risk, taking into account the review of literature. And so we select the contribution of tourism sector to national employment, the dependence on international tourists, and also the share of temporary employees in the tourism sector. And so taking into account that tourism is one of the sector the most affected by the pandemic, so we also know at this stage that the severity of the socioeconomic impact of the pandemic will also be strongly heterogeneous, both between and within the country. And so how COVID-19 is affecting the tourism sector. So the pandemic is affecting both, so supply side condition, namely through the mobility and travel restriction and health and safety measure imposed by government. And in the other side, it's also affecting the citizen choice due to psychological and economic factors. Economic factors related with the reduction of household incomes and also about uncertainty about the future. And so all these factors that we present in the previous slide are leading to change in consumer preferences and also in consumer behavior. So the effect is essentially what we observed in the last months, and what we also expect to observe in the next month is about the willingness to travel and about destination preferences. And so studies, survey, and also the statistical information revealed that tourism are looking for more for national destination, low tourist overcrowding, and nature-based destination. even if we know that there is also a reduction of household budget, it seems that the price is not the main criteria when tourists select a holiday destination, because they are more concerned about health and safety measures, and for this reason, so price is not the main criteria. Recent surveys also reveal that the expectation regarding international travel after in the post-COVID period is also expected to be lower in comparison so with the pre-crisis for different reasons. Also because due to economic crisis, but also regarding all the new behavior that COVID-19 is now is how taking into account how COVID-19 is affecting so consumer preferences. But in addition to the short-term effect, we know that COVID-19 is also expected to have medium and long-term effects. Indeed, recent survey revealed that so due to the acceleration of digitalization in business model, because we know that companies is now investing more in ICT and digitalization than they are foreseen to invest into 2020. And so entrepreneurs are rethinking the need for travel and physical meetings, also because now they are testing how the use of remote digital working tools are working, and they see that probably there is no the need for to continue to travel and to have physical meetings, even if we know that physical meetings have benefits, but it can also reduce, it has also some benefits. And so altogether, it is expected that there is a potential negative effect on the traditional business tourism model. But on the other side, and now regarding so the effect on leisure tourism, so COVID-19 is also accelerating the what we call so the green transition, so in a more sustainable and tourism concept, because consumers are more aware about the effect of climate change on human health, and they are also more aware about the effect of the impact of tourism on environment. And so for this reason, so recent surveys conducted to tourists reveal that they are more determined to make sustainable choice in the future regarding everyday life, but also regarding future travel possibilities. And so they are planning to use alternative modes of transport in order to reduce the carbon footprint, and probably also to continue to choose less visited destinations, so more rural destination, low overcrowding destination. The concept of smart tourism destination comes also frequently on recent study, because they make able to make a strong link and connection between the possibility to increase the quality of tourism experience, and also the quality of life of the resident population. Now, regarding some policy options, so how can we react face to these new trends and to make a region so more resilient? So there is a clear need to make EU regions more resilient in order to prepare these regions for future exogenous shocks. We know that COVID-19 health crisis is the third recognized disease which was transmitted from animal to human in only 2 decades. And so we need to prepare regions for a similar exogenous shock in the future. And innovation could play a key role in both in recovery and making regions more resilient. Because previous studies also demonstrated that investing in innovation during a crisis can foster the recovery process, but can also help firms to survive. There is also a clear need to make an alignment between recovery and the mega trends in order to mitigate the negative effect of these mega trends, namely to ensure a green and inclusive transition and to become a climate neutral economy. And how to make tourism sector more sustainable. So the concept of sustainable tourism is not something new. It has been in the last decade more a kind of niche, but now the idea is to make sustainable tourism concept has so the main dimension regarding to the main concept of tourism, and so it includes three dimensions to make a more efficient use of resources, the respect of host community, and to ensure the long-term impact, so a fair distribution of economic benefits, stable employment. So it's about sustainability in all the dimensions. But sustainable tourism also requires several principles. It implies that the participation of all relevant stakeholders in order to implement a sustainable tourism concept, a strong political leadership, and a constant monitoring of impact. And last but not least, tourism involvement is also very important. Because it is important that tourists need to understand also how to make more eco-friendly options, and also that they need also to respect so the host community. Green transition by this way implies not only implies change in the demand, so in consumer preferences and behavior, change in the supply side, which is related with so product, service, and infrastructure, but it's also implied change in all the remaining players in the ecosystem, so upstream and downstream. But a policy and legal framework is also needed. A financial system able to support green investment is also needed, and as well as education and training for labor forces and also for citizens. And research, innovation, and digitalization can play an important role in the transition, helping in the development of more sustainable products and solutions. And one example is the smart grid in energy sector and the smart mobility in transport sector. And now I give the floor to my colleague, Karel Haegeman, who will continue with presentation. Karel?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Thanks a lot, Anabela. I see there's a question also on the role of energy. That's interesting. But first, I mean, the second part, my role is also to take a step back here and to see how this all fits in within the wider perspective. I mean, European and globally, and the policy agenda. So, I mean, also we have to realize that this, I mean, the report and the work that mainly was written in spring, between April and June. I mean, we had in mind as worst case scenario the second wave, and now we're heading almost to the third wave. I mean, so we're happy and unhappy because, I mean, of course, unhappy with the situation, but I mean, it's nobody thought it would be as bad as it's actually worse than the worst case scenario. Let's explain it like that. That's basically what. So now globally, so I mean, in the beginning, you know, many people, and including us, thought this is kind of, you know, short term, medium term, but I mean, there's we can see some really long term effects of this, and some changes in the playing field. If we look at this work, this was done by JRC I2 on behavioral insights and foresight, and they looked at global trends and how they're affected by COVID-19. And obviously there's some, some are really kicking in open doors. Some of them, like, diversifying inequalities, changing nature of work, and so are being accelerated by the COVID crisis. And others, are rather neutral and these or decelerating. Although and climate change is in the blue part. I'm not sure where that should fit, but it gives a general picture of big trends and how COVID-19 crisis affects some of the key policy areas, just beyond tourism, but more globally. If we look at the next slide, Anabela, then in general, so apart from the COVID-19, there's some policy trends, global policy trends that also frame this work and the relevance of it. One of it, we all noticed that, the role of places is increasing. It has been going on for a number of years, also through a strong impetus from a European experiment on RIS3, but more globally, we see that the role of places, basically innovation happens in places, and the role of places in implementing innovation has been increasing in terms of also sharing practices, in terms of using local strengths to collect to global value chains. And that's also one of the things that, both in tourism but also in other areas, is how on the policy agenda now, how to link places to European and global value chains better than in the past. And within the European perspective, how to connect better or how to draw stronger on European diversity and the territorial diversity and cultural diversity that we have. This has been in the rhetorics for a long time, but we haven't actually managed to do that very well yet. So, this possibility, this opportunity here is being accelerated also through the COVID-19 trend. Also, we see globally, this is also a move, increasingly in different areas towards longer term policies to 2050, 2060. Okay, the global challenges have been there for quite a while, but there's a momentum now to shape more long-term policies that was not there in the past. The SDGs have been there for quite a while. They've gotten new oxygen, let's say, also within this crisis. And related to all of this is kind of this preparedness for the unexpected, not just the next virus or the next pandemic. We had the Icelandic volcano that at some point, paralyzed the whole of Europe. Next year will be something else. There will be another volcano, another. Also within the Commission, you see, that the first annual, foresight report of the Commission has been published recently. So also expressing and embracing more the need for more resilience and basically embracing uncertainty. Much more explicitly than was done in the past. And I think that's, that has always been a bit there on the agenda, underneath, but it has never been so explicit as it is being done today. So this is very interesting to see. And also within that, we see that, the territorial resilience and the capacity of places to absorb shocks of whatever nature is also, at the core of the European policies in that. And this is linked to European policy agenda and also on leaving no place behind and different strategies for regions to go about this. And not all regions are well placed to do the same in doing so. Okay, I think I said enough about this, Anabela. If you can go to the next. So then European policy context is, I've taken a few key things that I think are very important as a playing field for this tourism work. And one key element in this that we haven't mentioned here is a policy line supporting EU strategic autonomy. I mean, mainly technologically, but also in other areas. This is again something that has been there on the agenda, but has now put forward as a key element in EU policy, much stronger than it was in the past. So also there's the uniqueness of Europe within tourism, and bringing this across and playing this card very strongly, I mean, connects also to the strategic autonomy agenda. Obviously, the Green Deal and the green and fair transition, both in terms of people but also in terms of places, is of course very relevant here. The issue of resilience, the resilience agenda, which has actually those 4 aspects in there. And then the digital transition with the services and the smart cities, which opens up a lot of opportunities in different areas. So in that sense, already picking in, for instance, on the question on energy. So what is the impact of energy on tourism? We can have a debate on it, but it's directly in a number of issues. One of these is already, of course, on mobility, how mobility is being organized, and decarbonization of mobility. Also the effect on the behavioral side and the ways that the destinations tend to be much more close by, nearby, potentially acceleration of the European networks of high-speed trains, or even also low-speed trains, because there's very weak connections in terms of train networks, and so on. Apart from mobility, I see also there, for instance, there's a very strong priority within the Commission that's linked to smart cities, which is about buildings and smart and sustainable buildings, which very much focuses also on, has a dimension within tourism. Just to say that all of this is it's very much connected to the tourism agenda as well. Then the next. And then zooming a bit more specifically into tourism and how what concretely are kind of options and avenues to move forward out of this crisis. We summed up a number of them here. I mean, the first strategy is maximizing use of existing policy initiatives. There's a whole battery of initiatives that have been launched, are being launched, and also in well, the political arena, they have been beefed up to support better, both in the medium term but also in the long term, the recovery of tourism specifically. And then an interesting one as well, I think, is consumer preferences and tourism. There, I mean, in general, I think in the whole Commission agenda on the green and digital transition, the aspect of behavioral insights and consumer preferences, it is an important element that I mean has been not so much explored, and also within tourism. I mean, I think within this report we took this angle, which I think was very interesting to see and to learn, not just in terms of intentions of traveling or not traveling or preferences, but also the changing preferences in terms of types of tourism and so on, which you can say, okay, tomorrow they will change again. Well, I'm not sure. We'll be interested to see how long-term these trends are, because they were kind of one-off, measurements. I mean, the long-term, the longitudinality of those trends would be very interesting to see. But also, I mean, same in a wider perspective, I think that more research would be needed in terms of, where we're going with this. So this is, in the short and medium term, also in terms of what it means for new forms of tourism, and what the SDGs mean for tourism, how they translate into tourism. And in the longer term, of course, I mean, resilience in terms of, tourism against pandemics, where also I think in the report we propose a number of strategies, ranging from diversifying tourism, but also just diversifying the economy so that you're not so tourist dependent as a region as you are today. And that connects to the next point on increasing resilience through diversification. here is very much, we play the card of of diversity as a key asset, but also the territoriality of linking cities, regions, regional local actors better to international value chains, to see what it means also, and have them play a stronger role as an actor within the implementation of the twin transitions, and particularly in the Green Deal. There's a massive amount of money out there, so we need a massive amount of good ideas to make this all happen. This is not obvious. So this box on connecting better value chains and actors around them, it's a very big box, because it means bringing together actors, building European alliances on specific topics, and bring them together to test locally, but then to share experiences, to feedback into the network, to make context-dependent innovations, and so on. And also something we will say about this, also to try to diverse economy under not just S3 banner, but also S4 banner, where S4 then stands for the sustainability, obviously. I'll say a few words about that, what that would entail. And finally, on to implications for RNI governance. As we all know, we know how the funding and financing of RNI is being organized currently around Europe. This is very much around big principles and a big set of European funds. But there as well, it's important to cut across these different funds and to understand how we can connect both actors better together, but also initiatives and networks across the different funding programs. And that's a very strong element in the governance, both at program level, but also at actor level and at project level. Element of citizen involvement in there, and synergies, in particular also with the Agriculture Fund, which has not gotten much attention actually in the past. It is an issue actually between ESIF and agriculture funds. There's a lot of potential to build more synergies. In the end, and to move to some kind of multi-level governance where we have sustainable tourism high on the agenda. But that doesn't come as such. That requires a lot of coordination. One of the key issues is, of course, that we all know that, tourism is not kind of in the mandate of a European policy. This is according to subsidiarity. It's not up to the EU and its institutions to coordinate all of this. But some initiatives support it, but they're kind of subsidiary to the leads who are actually the territories. Yes, next. And then here, just a brief view on the key aspects of the Green Deal, where you see, well, it comes a bit back to the questions that the first question I saw in what about energy in tourism? Well, you see here, these are, it's one of the key lines in the European Green Deal, but all 5 of these, for instance, all these topics have their connection to tourism and what sustainability in tourism can mean. You can imagine all kinds of applications in all these areas that have their implication in tourism. So, from food systems to ecosystems to biodiversity to buildings. Also tourism industry. So the boxes, the list is endless and the box is very big. So the opportunity, in terms of opportunities, speaking positively, there's an enormous amount of opportunities there for innovation and improvement. At the next. Now, with that goes also that, in some places, such redirection, particularly towards a green economy, requires transition building on a new paradigm, which, I mean, we all know it's a long-term process. I mean, for some of them, the leading territories in Europe, it's lesser of an issue. But again, here, I mean, within JRC, within our unit, actually in B3, we have an initiative on specifically managing industrial transitions, focusing on lessons learned from some regions, and see how actually all regions, and particularly the less developed regions as well, can embark on this adventure and don't miss the train. I mean, much of it, of course, it's in building capacities, but it's all, I mean, there's much more into that. I mean, there's a point methodology which has been developed in the remit of this collaboration actually with DG Regio, in trying to understand how transitions can be embarked upon within both advanced and less advanced regions, in order to maximize the benefit of the green transition in all places, and not just in the happy few. So I think this is very important, because, I mean, we talk here about systemic change, and systemic change that doesn't go overnight and requires also a systemic approach. So that's, you know, methodologically one of the elements that's underlying this transition. The next. And then in terms of, I mean, smart specialization, NS3, obviously this has been and is still now, I mean, it has been an ex ante conditionality under Tier 1 of the structural funds, and is now going to be enabling condition under the new PO1. From the Tier 1 to the PO1, it's important because the S3 approach is connected now to a wider area, a wider set of policy areas. So while there were, was it 10 TOs, thematic objectives, now we have 5 policy objectives. But actually, spirit and the idea of smart specialization is and would be that it would cover, all of the policy objectives under the structural funds. But beyond that, that it kind of, covers the entire strategy of places in moving towards recovery and transition to the twin transitions. So obviously, the new opportunities, the role of EDP is very much in how, when we connect actors to those value chains, and in terms of experimenting, identifying the opportunities is very much at the heart of the EDP and of the smart specialization. But also, daring to redefine and refine innovation priorities that in the past were perhaps too wide or a bit in the wrong direction. This opens up new opportunities. So there's an important role here for EDP and forestry to kind of coordinate this process. Again, and of course, drawing on territorial specificities. Next. So, I mean, what is not in the regulation is an S4 and S4 plus. The regulation talks about S3. What we've been doing is trying to understand the current context and look at what if regions or cities or places go specifically for S3 for sustainability, which is a choice. It's not mandatory. This is a choice, but very much, triggered by the current circumstances. I mean, then it becomes a bit different, because this entails kind of a systemic change in terms of the region, in terms of specific strategies that you can use to move towards sustainability. We have a policy brief that will be published soon on this, and that disentangles this notion of S4 better. Is it just a label, or is it more than that? Obviously, it should be more than that, and it opens opportunities and different strategies for different places to play different roles within the sustainability agenda. I think that, and that's very important. And then it's connected to rolling out of specific strategies that are linked to implementation of these specific ways of and roles to play within the sustainability agenda. I mean, same for digitalization. Okay, we could add a lot of other symbols to the S, S4 plus for the inclusiveness, for the digital, and so on and so on. But I mean, I think on the headline of the twin transitions, I mean, we commonly understand green, digital, and inclusiveness. But what we wanted to put forward here is conceptually some different ways of looking at territorial specialization and diversification that give a fresh look to I mean, we can give another symposium about that with lots of examples, but I think that's for the questions. So next. Okay, that's the last one. So I mean, yes, that's, I mean, you see the, well, accommodations, tourist accommodations from until September. We have the latest data now. Obviously, during almost entire European lockdown, I mean, they're close to zero almost in April. But still, I mean, it doesn't look very good. So it's clear that tourism, I mean, has been one of the most highly affected areas in Europe by the COVID. I think in particular, I mean, what we try to do with this research is look at those patterns and preferences. I mean, specifically testing this within tourism, but this looks actually quite promising. And I don't know within forum if we can make a call for this, but I would be interested if some people here are interested to explore, to scratch a bit more the surface of behavioral economics and behavioral insights into both tourism, but also in a wider perspective into any other sector or into the twin transitions. I mean, interesting, and please flag that if you have an interest in that. We do, obviously, because and I would like to just promote here again a bit, you know, the S4 label and a different way of thinking. We have to explain a bit further on that. But one of the ideas is obviously to reduce this regional vulnerability in terms of tourism, but also in a wider perspective, economic and socioeconomic vulnerability of regions in the long term. I think, well, you'd stop here more or less, no? Yes, this is the last slide. So thank you.
Thank you. It was quite interesting, and the overall approach and the breadth and so thank you. We have 4 questions, and let's go with Lisa, my colleague from University of Malta. And give me a second, I will connect her as a panelist. So Lisa, you should be able to rejoin as panelist in any minute, yeah? She has a question that basically I also had in my mind when. And
hello,
Lisa, yeah.
good afternoon. Thank you for your very interesting perspectives on tourism post-COVID. Well, I'm quite interested in the tourism industry, looking at it from the perspective of how tourism destinations, let's say, can affect a transition to sustainable development. So my question really related to the fact that there are different starting points for different tourism destinations, which in a sense you touched upon very briefly. So there are those destinations like Malta, for example, that historically is based on sun and sea and mass consumption. And then there are others at a different stage in the life cycle that have, let's say, they are nascent, or they have channeled their natural resources quite differently. So for sort of the declining tourism destinations, how do you see the role of innovation in actually enabling these to make a transition to sustainable development? And sometimes in the literature, it is actually questioned whether tourism can gain some competitive advantages from sustainable development. So I'd like your thoughts on this. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lisa, for your question. Well, recently at JRC, so we conduct like a kind of pilot action with a Portuguese region, so Algarve region. So this region is strongly dependent on tourism activity. His main concept of so the tourism sector is mainly concentrated on sun and sea, also more or less like Malta. And so during this workshop, it was related with what we call the entrepreneurial discovery process, so under the smart specialization concept. So we plan to publish a policy brief with the main conclusion of this workshop in January. And so we discussed with 65 stakeholders about challenge, opportunities, and needs of the market related with the digitalization of tourism sector. So, and taking into account the post-COVID recovery. And so the idea was also to see how digital innovation can help in order to be more competitive in the future in post-COVID recovery. And so the main recommendation is that there is a need of a better data management, diversification of tourism offer, which means that to develop other kind of tourism product within the region, not only based on the concept of sun and sea, to build a more strong network and cooperation between actors and actors within the territory and with other territories. More focus on the quality than in the quantity. So this is only some examples. So there is a list of recommendations how to help this region strongly dependent on tourism and very affected by COVID-19 crisis. And so it was very interesting to see that most of the participants see COVID-19 crisis as an opportunity for the region, because they have the feeling that due to this to this massive consumption of tourists, also the negative effect on the natural ecosystem, that in the end, so the image of the region is not they are not able to provide a clear and overall vision of all the products and the natural resources of the region. And so the idea, it's so now this is just to so let's go back to your question to see if I cover everything. The competitive advantage for a sustainable tourism here. So I think that digital innovation play a vital role in the sense then they need to, so they talk about to create other kind of tool in order to help to also to fight the seasonality and also to make a better choice in order to help tourists. For example, I know that there is an app which make able also to identify more local products and also to make it more eco-friendly solution. So I don't know if I cover all your questions. Well, I tried at least. I don't know if Karel wants to.
I don't know if I'm allowed a follow-up question. Oh, okay, sorry. Oh, I don't.
Let me. Yeah. I don't know how much time we have, Nicola, but
yeah, we have
listen,
10 minutes. So.
We have 10 minutes. Oh, that's not a lot. Well, then a few quick things. Obviously, it's clear that in terms of preferences, I mean, here there's opportunities for rural tourism, you know, to develop places that are a bit more remote and so on. So, but I mean, if you talk about declining types of tourism, I mean, I assume you talk about mass tourism, right? And the big. Look, I mean, even there, I mean, competitive advantage, it could also be in terms of competitive disadvantage. There is no choice. The whole, I mean, not just the value chains, the value chains, the wide number of value chains connected to that, from food in the hotel, from the hotel itself, the energy efficiency, the type of energy used, the transport to get there, I mean, the packaging, the whole systemic way of doing things, also for this type of declining or not, more massive or less massive types of tourism is on the agenda and is there to stay and will not go away anymore. So the quicker and the faster you embark on this, with your destination on that, in terms of consumer preferences, the sensitivity for ecologically, acceptable mass tourism, is likely to increase. Already with your flight, you can add a bit more to compensate for your CO2 emissions and so. But there's a massive amount of things there, and there also, the first mover advantage is likely to have to reap more benefits of it than others, basically. So it's not just a very small thing and a yes or no. It's yes or yes, but the question is how and where, how fast, where you put your priorities. And try to connect this to the strengths of your place. Let's say if you have a strong connection within, your place, within buildings or within types of energy, and you can connect this to your tourism sector, then you can make faster leaps within that specific area. I think the secret is more in that, in trying to connect your strengths to the choice you make in how you're going to green the tourism, be it mass tourism or not. I think that's the key question.
Perfect. Yeah.
Thank you.
Lisa, I don't have like to add something. Yeah.
I'm abusing
but just be
a bit.
fast. Yeah.
Yes. Related to this, what role do you see unrelated variety having in tourism specialization? So connections with unrelated sectors, the famous this is smart specialization jargon we've heard. So the links between tourism and biotechnology or construction.
Again, those links are so vast. Just because of what I've come to explain there, and it is context dependent. This depends very much on the strengths and the specialization within your territory. I could well imagine that you have mass tourism, and some mass tourism destinations, they come with specific food that is because they're strong in the food sector, and that's linked to biotech, or I'm just inventing it here right now. We can hint 100 stories like that. So it's actually what you say is at the core of what we need to seek actually to seek all these options to optimize this these combinations between different sectors and the spillovers. So, but I think we need more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just hurrying up. So we have one interesting question from Goran, but also we need just to wait a little bit for him to join. But here in Split, we started working on EDIH, European Digital Innovation Hub, in blue-green sector. It's called Blue DIH, and we are just preparing, hopefully, an application for a European call. But it's always a question from my side: how can we be more agile? Everything seems that we are always lagging with our actions, and it's obviously question without answer. Sorry, I hear myself with echo, but Goran, please ask your question now.
So, hi everyone, my name is Goran Chorluka, coming from the University Split. So actually, first of all, thank you for your presentation. Actually, my question is that because I'm dealing pretty much with tourism seasonality and sustainable tourism and over-tourism, and actually this whole situation about the pandemic with COVID gave us a really really surprising chance to, actually it was a forced stop for the whole tourism industry, which was just running and growing, uncontrolled growth all over the world, actually becoming bigger and bigger, and most problems concerning tourism actually were permanently increasing, and there was actually no real chance to start a change. And now actually we get the possibility to change something because we got a first stop, and we could actually rethink tourism and set things new, make a new framework or how to deliver the tourism product and what kind of tourism destination we look for. For example, we come from Croatia, and as you know, Croatia is the most seasonally affected destination in Europe, I'm sure also maybe worldwide. And actually this gives us really a chance to rethink, and many destinations in Croatia, as Split or especially Dubrovnik, faced already the problem of over-tourism. So now the question really is this a chance to rethink tourism and make things different? And what do you think, is there a possibility that things might change in the future because of, or are we going to run back as fast as possible into the old normal mass tourism and behave as we used to behave? Because we have, from maybe the opinion is that the amount of tourists who might change their travel behavior is a niche market, a smaller market that consumer are going to continue consuming as they used to consume. And then we have the linears, all the restaurants, airline companies, hotels, hotel chains, etc., who look for more as they see more. And is there a possibility to change? And if yes, who could be the driver of the change, and who should be the driver of the change? Thank you.
I don't know, Anabela, if you want to start or.
You can start, Karel.
Okay. Look, will we trap into the habit of doing the same as usual? Yes. I mean, of course, yes. Will we learn from this crisis? Well, I hope so. Humankind is not really, I mean, inclined to be learning a lot. I mean, we have a problem with learning. I think I think we all know that, sort of. But there's a but now here. I mean, coming back to the report first. I mean, within the report, what we see also in that, especially in employment, what we see, like in other crises as well, and with the support, we have the ERTE in Spain and so on, the temporary supports to unemployment, and so is that we expect the impact for tourism within like a year or so, or even now a bit less, will be much bigger than we see now right now. So similarly, I mean, a lot of businesses will go out of business. Okay, or have already been. So this is not a secret. This is an open door. That's very sad. What's the good side of that is that many new initiatives now, I mean, might want to try to do something different, and that so there is a kind of an acceleration of innovation within tourism, like in other areas, but even more in tourism, because I mean more businesses get pushed out, so there's a bigger gap. So the competition might increase and come suddenly around the corner from a different way. So the danger of doing business as usual might become quite tricky now. So that's one thing. I mean, that's just an observation. A second observation is that European policy and the battery, the massiveness of the policy initiatives that are being put in place now in support of both tourism and the European economy as a whole is so massive, and it's directional. It is very much clearly earmarked towards a specific direction, that we cannot underestimate the power of that. Even though if you don't embark on that, you don't use these funds, and you don't want to hear anything about it, the wave is there to come. Because many people will embark on it, and you will notice that. And thirdly, I think most importantly, that it's the global agenda. The global agenda, has been slightly accelerating now, and will have to, and undoubtedly so will accelerate more and more, because I mean, I'm specifically, making reference to obviously the climate goals, but also wider in terms of SDGs and so on. So that's another push towards doing things differently. So I mean, the answer we'll know in 10 years, but I think the context is a bit different, and particularly European policy had been trying to frame the crisis very much as an opportunity and has been acting upon it. So I think, I mean, I'm hopeful if that's an answer to the question, but I'm quite hopeful. So.
Okay, so Anabela, you don't have anything to add, I suppose, and maybe we can wrap up as 3 o'clock is just passed. So thank you, Karel and Anabela. Thanks, Lisa and Goran, for pitching in with questions. And we had 30 participants today from all over the CU Alliance. So thank you all for participating. And I hope that we will have some opportunity to meet in future in real life. So please follow the social media accounts of the CEU and the website c-eu.org for the announcements of the upcoming webinars. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.